podcast.
Thank
I'm so
you.
excited you're here today, and I'm so excited to get to meet you in real life too. This is really cool.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Amazing. And we were just talking a little bit about Brooklyn and how I just moved to Brooklyn, and it's so cool because I love Pilates, and the closest Pilates studio that I have to me there is the SLT studio.
Perfect.
So it's been
Convenient.
amazing. Yeah,
Convenient.
it's been amazing.
Good.
And so I'm really excited to just chat about SLT and like also your own journey, like your inner growth journey and your career journey and how you went from like founding SLT to now stretched and like everything else that you've also like had a pulse on. So
Yes.
I think it's going to be amazing. So the first question I always ask everyone on the podcast is, do you know your sun, moon, and rising in astrology?
So I only knew my son until I knew this was going to be a question. And so I actually took an online test.
Oh my God.
And I learned a lot about myself. And we actually talked about it in the office. And I've actually decided we're going to make everybody take the test and talk about those aspects of themselves, because it actually reminds me of these personality tests that you take for career development.
Like
So,
Myers-Briggs, or
yes.
like there's so many
Strength
other ones.
Finder, yes. But so I'm a Leo, and I actually wrote one of my college essays was on how I'm a total Leo, and I'm
Really?
100% Leo. So that's my sun. My moon is Aquarius, and my rising is Taurus.
No way.
So I've learned a lot of new things in the past few days.
Oh my gosh. Wait, that's so cool. And I love that it inspired you to like add it into like the
yeah.
SLT or just like corporate culture that you
Yes.
lead. Because I think to me, the beauty of astrology is that it just helps us know ourselves better and know other people around us better.
Totally. And so I also learned that there are a few folks in my office who are very into astrology and they knew all these things first. And that there's another half that knew as little as I did, other than like, what is their sign? So it was very telling, and it will continue to be telling. And
yeah,
I say I'm like a total Leo. So.
What do you like resonate with as a Leo?
I think the fiery personality, liking to be a little dramatic and theatrical, and I'm kind of loud and opinionated, and I get upset, and I get passionate about things. And so I think a lot of that is very true.
Yeah. Did you know you were born in a full moon?
I didn't know that.
That's because your sun and your moon are opposite signs. So you have the Aquarius moon and the Leo sun, and full moons happen when the sun and the moon are in opposite signs.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
I love it.
It's a cool little fun fact. And when you read up about like your rising sign and your moon sign, what was something interesting you learned?
Well, one of the things I thought was wrong, but then someone explained to me that like one of them means it's your like shadow sign. So it's like supposedly your dark sign. But one of them said that I'm really calm, which I'm not, and that I take a while to deliberate.
That's the Taurus rising.
And I was like, no, but okay.
But that could also be, I think, because I'm a Taurus.
Okay.
I think a Taurus rising energy is also like enjoying the good things, like enjoying the finer things in life.
That
and,
I
like,
resonate with.
Your five senses and like good food or perfume or candles or like clothing, like your sense of style. It can kind of come up.
For me, it's shoes and hotels.
Yeah.
I love to travel very nicely, and I have a shoe problem.
Like the little luxuries,
Yes.
Yes. For me, it's perfumes and food.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
And then it's funny because my mom has an Aquarius moon, and I feel like anyone with an Aquarius moon, it's like you tend to overanalyze your feelings a little bit. It's like you want to be rational. Yeah. There's a strong part of like you that doesn't want to like lean in so much to the emotions.
Yes. Yeah. I'm very, not completely unemotional, but I'm extremely logical and rational and like fair. And to me, like it's very clear what's right. Like it's kind of black and white. And so I don't see as much gray.
Yeah, I do feel like that's kind of the Aquarius moon. But it's not necessarily your shadow only. It can also be just like your emotions and kind of what you're like within. Almost like the part of you that maybe people don't see as much. So I guess that's the shadow.
Yes. Well, and now you're inspiring me to do a lot more digging, because there was like 20 pages of information when I actually got deep into it. And, I was only scratching.
It's a journey. Like the more you learn, the more you understand yourself, and the more compassion you have for certain traits that you sometimes like don't want to like acknowledge, maybe.
Yes, it's a whole new world, and it is good for self-reflection.
For sure. Yeah. Oh my gosh, love that, and I love that you like took the time to look into it before, because if not, you wouldn't have
prepared.
Come on. Love it. And a question I really want to ask you too is: were you always entrepreneurial? Like before you went to college, or even during college? When did it kind of start for you? Like when did you start having this drive to be an entrepreneur?
I think it definitely started early. At the latest college. In college, I had a few interesting jobs that weren't even, it wasn't like my parents said, go get a job. I actually like secretly got jobs because I wanted to do it and they didn't really want me to. They wanted me to focus on school. I actually delivered I invested in this business that was like Subway, or not Subway, sub sandwiches, delivery of them. And so you took the order and then I would drive my own car around to people's like apartments and dorms and bring them sandwiches. I worked at a store and organized a fashion show. So it was at least college. I actually don't remember that many specific younger than that examples, but definitely college. And then from there, it kept happening. I'd come up with an idea, maybe, would think about it for a really long time. And once I thought about it for like a year or so, I would always do something about it.
You're like, okay, I'm going to go.
Yes. Because you can have a lot of ideas, but if you really are going to pursue something, it's got to be an idea that sticks with you and you're really into. Otherwise, it's going to be trouble.
I mean, that's the Taurus rising. It's like you let it sit for like a year. And then you're like, okay, let's go.
Look at you.
And then the fire.
According to my sign, yes.
I love that. And what was it like when you graduated college? Like, can you trace me back from like then into like a few years after?
Yes. So I actually graduated early from college, but wanted to stay down only because I had all these like credits and then did summer school. And so I took like the GMAT to maybe go to business school, the LSAT to maybe go to law school. And I did like an Outward Bound to find myself. And I found out I wasn't made for Outward Bound and I actually left early. But
what's Outward Bound?
Oh, it's one of these like hiking, camping, experiences for a few weeks where you're really, you're supposed to cry a few times probably and like get through it. Instead, I like cried a few times and was like, I've learned that this is not for me.
Yes.
But then I found my first career, but I was reading a magazine. I went to Duke. I was down at Duke reading a magazine and there was an article on this new career path called Cool Hunters is what the article called them, Cool Hunters. And it's this field of trend forecasting, which has been around now at this point for like 20 something years. And I read what these people do is they study the consumer behavior and come up with the like macro and micro trends that are affecting consumers and then help companies make decisions based on that. And I was like, this is exactly what I do anyway. I'm so into trends and the difference between fads and trends. And wouldn't it be great to get paid to do this? I sent my resume with cover letters to the 5 companies mentioned, and I got a job at one of them. And at the job, it was called Youth Intelligence because it was focused on the young generations. I started doing that, and it was market research consulting and trend forecasting. We did like focus groups. We did surveys. I would walk up to people on the street who looked cool and ask them to fill out surveys for like $10. It was very
that's so interesting.
Oh, it was like, I can't believe I did it. Like it was very grassroots. I mean, you're like one of those people on the street asking people to take a survey. It doesn't feel that cool, but you're actually trying to get the cool people to do it.
And you're learning so much in the process.
Oh, so interesting. And then we would create this report and sell it to companies. And we'd also do customized research as well. And I loved it. I did it for 3 years. And then I wanted to go to business school. I had already taken the GMAT. I wanted more well-rounded business exposure. And so went after 3 years. I went to Harvard, loved that, thought I wanted to go work at an actual company because the one thing I didn't love about consulting is that you don't actually do anything. You tell people what to do, but you don't do the thing.
Implement them.
Yes. And most of the time your clients don't do what you say anyway. And so it can be a little frustrating. So I got a summer internship and realized that at most big companies, most people don't actually implement anything either. And so I went back. The trend forecasting company I had worked for had been purchased by CAA, which is a talent agency in LA. So did a lot more in the entertainment space with it. Ran our New York office, loved it, but left to pursue an idea. At the time, I had written a macro trend, which is like a bigger societal trend in the way people are thinking. I had called it the rise of well consciousness. And it's hard.
When was this?
This was 2005. I probably wrote it and then left in 2006. It's hard to imagine a world where wellness wasn't an intricate part of it, but prior to that, we used to say everyone was Dr. Googling. So you were having ailments or issues, and then you were diagnosing yourself, and then you were treating it. You weren't preventatively thinking about these things prior to then. And in 2005, it started to become more mainstream. And it was when meditation became a thing, not very fringe. It's when people were vegan and it wasn't like so crazy to be vegan. It was when people started thinking about what was in their beauty products or what is the right snack to have, realizing yogurt may not be, not all yogurts are healthy and, things like that, where people were getting smart about that stuff. And a friend of mine and I had been inspired by this publication that you're probably too young to remember, but it was a daily email called Daily Candy. They delivered the latest in like sample sales, restaurant openings, all that to people's inboxes with an ad revenue business model. And so I tend to be inspired by other businesses. I don't come up with like completely original ideas, but so we started a company called Vital Juice, which we said was daily candy without the cavities. We delivered the latest in fitness, nutrition, beauty, and wellness to people's inboxes, and we sold ads to pay for everything. So that was my like first like real big foray where I raised a bunch of money. It was like this whole sorted journey, but eventually we brought in a private equity company to help fund it, ran that with my partner. I did the like marketing ad sales side of the business while she oversaw the content. But that was when I got completely obsessed with health and wellness.
Wow. And like, I'm just mind blown here because look at where wellness has gone.
It's crazy.
Now, especially in the last like 3 years, like I think since lockdown and TikTok, wellness has grown so much, especially holistic wellness too. Like meditation might have like started to become a thing back then, but now it's like there's so many apps and like all these different studios that do meditation, all these different resources that are being created to fulfill these like needs or these wants from like the customers. So it's just so cool to me like how much foresight you had.
Oh, well, thank you. But yeah, I mean, it was, again, my career put me in that position. And so I was lucky, but that was the beginning. And it's, again, hard to imagine before all this stuff were like household words.
For sure. For sure. And then how did you come across Pilates? Like, what was your first encounter with Pilates as a workout?
My first personal encounter was at Equinox. So I was an Equinox member in the days of Vital Juice and maybe even in the days of, when I was doing the trend forecasting. And I always thought of Pilates as this one-on-one, expensive, hard to get the time you want. To be honest, that was always in my mind. It's like, I always wanted to work out at 8 a.m. I was like a person who got to the office at 9:30, 10, and then always worked till like my dinner. So I was like slightly later. And the ideal time for me to work out was like 8 a.m. And it was impossible to get the
like
one
a private Pilates class.
I mean, there's like 3 people in the whole place that are going to get it, and it's likely they've had that spot for years. So I felt like it was kind of inaccessible, expensive, and then I also kind of felt like, to be honest, while the results, I was obsessed with the results. I always thought Pilates gets you the body you want, but I always felt like I had to get on like the Stairmaster or the treadmill or the elliptical after a session because I didn't feel like it was like
a workout.
Enough of a workout. Yes, I knew the results were good if you stuck to it, but there was something about it that left me wanting more of a workout.
Maybe like the feeling that it was giving you.
Yes, and you don't get that like adrenaline or the rush. There's no like sweat really in what I thought of Pilates as back then.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. And then how did that motivate you to like create SLT? And what was that process like?
So again, I had loved the results of Pilates. And then what started happening were people were starting to open boutique fitness studios. And again, hard to imagine when there were no boutique fitness studios.
Yeah.
But back in the day, the first ones were Soul Cycle, which was inspired by another spin studio. It was called Zone Hamptons. I always say she's like the original, the woman who started that is the original like spin instructor and spin studio. But there was only yoga, bar, and spin. Those were the 3 modalities that I remember when it started. And I could appreciate a lot of aspects of all 3 of them, and different brands offer different things. Like I was obsessed with the vibe of a Soul Cycle and the energy. But the results that I wanted from a workout were still the Pilates results. Spin is a great workout, but it's lower body. It's not really upper body. It's not really arms. It's not really core. And in my opinion, it doesn't get people the body they're going for as much as like a Pilates does. And I wanted the Pilates results in a SoulCycle experience. And that's where SLT came from. And I always was inspired. I've been based in New York this whole time, but my inspiration has always come from LA.
Yeah.
So I do a lot
like
of
bringing the LA things to New York.
Yes. I've said like I want little LA in New York. If there was like an area where all the best like restaurants, exercise,
healthy
treatments,
spots.
yes, we're all in one area, and you could call it Little LA.
That'd be
and if
so
they could
cool.
take the weather and it was in like its own bubble, and it was always like 70 and sunny, that'd be great too.
Always blue skies.
Yes. And so on a trip to LA, a friend had told me, you've got to try this guy Sebastian's studios. It's like, at the time, this was more PC to say Pilates on crack. And I went, and I was terrible at it, I'll say, but I knew the minute I took that class that this was what I had been looking for. It was very hard. It was full. There were a lot of classes. I would recognize people when I would come back 3 months later. So it had this loyalty. And I was just like, how is this not New York?
Yeah.
And I have no fitness background other than being someone who enjoys taking the classes. And so I tried to get other people to bring this machine. I was like, we need this machine in New York. I approached a friend who was running Flywheel at the time. I approached a friend who was at Equinox and was like, you guys need to do this. And when both of them said no, I concluded, I guess I'm opening my exercise studio.
And I guess I'm doing it.
And I was still running Vital Juice. And a fitness owner had told me that she only spent like 3 hours a day running her studio. So I was like, oh, I can do both. And I opened the studio. And from the day it opened, I literally I worked only from my studio and went back to my Vital Juice office like to clean it out, because for me it was a 16-hour day. You know, if classes started at 6:30 a.m. and ended at 8:30 p.m., I was there the whole time.
You were managing the whole studio.
I didn't hire a manager. I didn't have front desk. It just wasn't part of my model. I had instructors in me, and I knew all the clients, and I would listen to, we didn't have separation between the class and the waiting room there. So I heard every single class, and I'm like pretty critical. And so I would just, say what I liked and didn't like. And one day an instructor called me at 10:30, and she was supposed to teach at 6:30 a.m. and she had a stomach bug or something, flu. And I was like, I guess I'm teaching. Like, never really planned to teach, but I was like, I guess I have to teach this class. So I became an instructor of it as well. And
like that day you just taught the class?
Yes. But I had sat and listened to so many and taken so many that I had sat through training too. I knew I like needed to know how to teach it to be an authority. I actually had mentorship a little bit from, Fred and Elizabeth from Exhale. Like they're like OG boutique fitness. And when I told them that I was opening a studio, they were like, you should really teach it or your instructors aren't going to respect you. So I kind of had it in the back of my head, but I was thrown into it. And
it was like when you least expected, you're like, okay, I guess we're going.
Yeah. But it's the best way to have to do something because you're not stressing about it or you've no
overthinking before. Yeah. Wow. That's so cool. And has the class itself changed since then to now? Because you launched it in 2011, right? So it's been a long time.
Yeah.
And I'm curious to see, like, has it changed? Is it still, like, to its roots? How did it evolve as you evolved and as time passed, too?
Yeah, it's such an interesting question because in some ways it's the same. Like, in that I think that the core principles and what drew me to it and what was so compelling about it 12 years ago are still the focuses. And in a lot of ways, I find myself as the CEO of the business bringing us back to that when we stray a little. So it has certainly evolved. But in the end, it hasn't really changed so much. The core principles, I'll say, like, it's always been a full body workout, but that is so rooted in the core part of the workout that, like, sometimes I'll find we're getting away from that and like we're doing a lot more legs. And I'm like, no, we got to get back to this being about the core, full body, but always a core burn. And, but other things have changed, like music has become more important. And I find myself, when we first started, we were very much educating the market on this workout and that it's not Pilates, but it's rooted in Pilates and here's why it's good. And people were so used to fast cardio and feeling like you had to be like dripping
like
sweat.
those like spin classes vibe.
And impact. Like everyone was into like, it has to be like running or jumping or spinning. Otherwise it wasn't that good of a workout. So at first we were just educating the market on the workout, but now we have a lot of competitors that do basically the same workout. And so that's where a lot of the like evolution is coming from, is like, how are we different from, I call these, what we are and what these other studios are, better former studios, because we don't use a reformer. So there are studios out there that use the Pilates reformer, and now they do group classes, which again, did not exist when I started 12 years ago. It was always one-on-one.
And SLT uses the mega former?
We use the mega former. And so you could call the category that, but that's the name of our machine, not the others that have like kind of copied. There are copies of the mega former. I don't want to say it negatively, but I call that whole category better former, because I think these machines are like evolved reformers. They're better than reformers. And now when we're defining who we are, it's not who we are versus like a boot camp class. It's who we are versus some of the other better former studios. And that's where some of the innovation has come in, is we like to think we are more form focused, and like we actually adjust you and want you safe, as well as like doing the move as effectively as possible. And it could be like one little tweak of your hip and it goes from not feeling the move to like really feeling the move. So we're very detail oriented and focused, and we try to be personalized. I mean, we all have like injuries or limitations, or whether mental or physical. And we want to meet you where you are, but also try to push you. And so that's some of our like secret sauce. You know, we have like a bunch of things that we think are our secret sauce. And we want this combination of like, we say we're the smart workout. Like it's low impact, high intensity. I've been doing it for 12 years. I'm in my mid to late 40s. I expect to be able to do it in my 50s and even my 60s, because longevity is such a buzzy word right now. And I think it
really is
a longevity workout.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean, there's so many things. Obviously, I'm passionate about the workout.
Oh my God, yes, 100%,
so many
as
things
you should.
that I love about it. But.
Yeah, and can we talk a little bit about SLT Tread also?
Yes.
It's kind of like a newer, it was 2020 that you launched it?
Well, unfortunately, we launched it January 17th, 2020. So exactly 2 months before we had to shut all of our New York studios for a year. So unfortunate timing. I love the concept.
I loved it. I went kind of recently because you guys had a Galentine's event.
Yes.
And I absolutely loved it, because I'm currently training for a half marathon as we're recording this. And so I've been running a little bit more, and I just love how you kind of still get that burn and you feel really balanced.
Yes, it's great for cross training. When I trained, I used to do like my long runs on the weekend and then more like interval runs during the week. And I think Tread is great for that. So the reason we launched it is interesting, because I think the world is a little different post-pandemic. But before the pandemic, again, I felt like a lot of the pushback I was getting from friends who didn't do SLT or didn't want to try it was like, it's not sweaty enough, it's not cardio enough. And I would explain to them like, cardio actually means getting your heart rate up, and you get your heart rate up in SLT and you actually keep it up for 50 minutes, but people want the fast thing. And so we said, like, why don't we combine it with probably the most traditional, acceptable form of like fast cardio? Why don't we get like what I think obviously
like the berries of Pilates?
Yes. And so it was like, let's get the best piece of toning equipment or sculpting equipment, whatever you want to call it, strengthening equipment, with the best treadmill. We have the Woodway treadmill, and do a hybrid class. So maybe it'll bring people into the fold. It's also like an opportunity for our existing clients to add a little cardio. We're fine with walkers, runners, whatever. In fact, we have some walking classes, which are my favorite. But And so tread is the best workout ever. It's actually the hardest workout to teach. I tell my instructors.
Yeah, because you have to be so
my God.
mindful of both sides of the class at the same time.
It's the time and what they're doing. Like, you're looking at 2 clocks. I say to the instructors that teach it, because it's hard to get instructors to teach it because it's a lot more work. If you can teach this, you can teach anything. Like,
for sure.
Once you've done it, like,
it's like
good.
Multitasking to a T.
I mean, the hardest thing ever. So I love tread. The timing's been like a little tough, but we're totally coming back and it's really getting its footing.
I really hope you guys open more studios because I fell in love when I went.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I know, it'd be great. And we also opened in a neighborhood that like was very up and coming, and the pandemic hit it, and like it took a hit. Nomad was very like where people were starting to work and people were starting to move there, but it took a hit. So I think it's finally coming back.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And I also wanted to kind of dive into your own favorite wellness practices.
Yes.
So can we talk a little bit about that? Like, what are some non-negotiables for you, like when it comes to your health? And that can be like fitness. Obviously, I'm sure SLT is a big part of it, but I also just want to hear any other practices that have been like game-changing for you.
I was thinking about that today because no matter how busy I am, I always get my at least 3 SLTs in a week. And I had a very busy day today, and I took SLT at 10:30, and I was like running out of the office at 10:22 to make it. And I'm always like worried about what people are thinking of me. And I'm like, this is my non-negotiable. Like, I schedule my day around my workout. So I've done SLT for 12 years, 3 to 4 times a week. I still do it. I love it just as much as I did in the past, 12 years ago. So that's my one thing. And the thing that I've gotten really into, I was joking because someone was asking me as like a fitness expert to pick 4 items. And I was like, honestly, I feel like I'm more of a beauty expert lately because I've become obsessed with my face, because I actually have not put a needle in it yet. And as a result, I have every gadget. I'll try every other thing that isn't a needle. So I use my new face in the morning. I mean, my kids, my boyfriend, my nanny, they'll like make fun of me walking around with like a gadget on my face, like the gel. And then I new face my face. I'll put like my vitamin C on and then use this like heated massager. I've got like different masks for every night. I use my like red light therapy. Like, I've gotten pretty crazy.
You got all of the things.
Yes. So like for at least 5 minutes in the morning, I'm dealing with my face, and at least 10 minutes at night. So 15 minutes a day. And then I go for my like face. At Stretch, we offer this new thing called Faceage, and it's a face massage. So I'll go for my Faceage or a facial, or I'll try it all. So I'm obsessed with my like face stuff right now too. Yeah. The one thing I've never gotten into, I'll say, and I've tried several times, is meditating. And
I was gonna ask.
No, I say fitness is my meditation. So
which so far, yeah. Exactly. Because especially in a workout class or something like that, in general, whenever I'm working out, it's my moment to decompress. Like, I'm not really thinking about too many things or my to-do list. Like, maybe sometimes if I'm really, really stressed, but usually when I'm in my workout, it's like I'm in my zone.
Yes.
And I love that.
And so I'll also mix in like outdoor walks or like a monotonous cardio workout like once or twice a week. And that's when I find myself zoning out, because honestly, when I'm taking an SLT workout, I'm also like noticing that there's like something on the floor and that sign needs to be taken down, and
the entrepreneur hat is on.
Yes. So usually more meditative for me is working out at someone else's studio or like outside or something. Yeah.
Something you said when you were talking about like leaving for your workout today is like, oh, I sometimes feel like I'm thinking a lot about what other people are thinking about me. So do you feel like that has been a part of your own like inner growth journey, or is there anything else that you feel has been like coming up recently that you've been working on when it comes to like your relationship with yourself?
Well, and I like this question because it really makes me think. There are other questions like I know the answers to, and it makes me realize I'm not, and I don't know if these are results of my signs, I'm not like that introspective, and I actually don't see a therapist, which I should. So I don't do a lot of like analysis, but COVID actually really made me analyze, because I was go, 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 and SLT was grow, 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 and stretched was grow, grow, grow. And then I had to deal with all this adversity that I hadn't had to deal with because it was like grow, grow, grow. And that is what probably has made me be more introspective about like what jazzes me, what I'm good at, what makes me happy. But I have grown a lot from, facing the adversity of COVID, being a mother. I have children who are 5 and 7, so not that young, but dealing with the whole balancing act of those two things has helped me grow, and prioritizing. I came up with a life philosophy for myself when I was in business school. So I took a class that was called Women Building Businesses.
Mm-hmm.
And I took it because it was the only class offered at Harvard where you could work on a business model, which is crazy. I mean, nowadays, I'm sure there's a million, like a business plan and a business model.
In business school?
It was crazy. I mean, entrepreneurship was not that big of a focus back when I went. This is 20 years ago that I went to business school. But I wanted to work on a business plan. So I took the class. But what the class entailed was every class, a woman who was running a Fortune 500 company would come speak to us. And then we'd have Q&A, and someone would always ask her about her work-life balance.
Mm-hmm.
And the way I remember it is every single time the woman would start crying when asked about her
work-life
balance, because as one of the women said it, she had decided early on in her career to do what she called less, better. So focus on like
that's literally my mantra of this year.
Less better?
Less but better.
Well, so I was
but it's
so
hard.
struck by
it's very hard.
By that all of their reactions and then that comment. And so the last day of class, this is going to be interesting to you, I think, but I raised my hand because it was like a reflection class, and I said, this class has made me less ambitious. I said, I do not want to run a Fortune 500 company if it means that I am going to cry when someone asks me about my work-life balance because I didn't have a family or, didn't speak to my kids or and so I said, my new life philosophy is more, worse. I said, I don't need to be amazing at any of the things if it means at least being able to have all the things, because I don't think you could do more better, right? Like you kind of have to pick and choose, either
so being okay with trying more things.
Right. And being like a little half-assed at things. So I don't have to be the best mom. My kids go to a school where there's a lot of parent involvement, and there's chapel actually once a week. And I've probably been to 3 this whole year, whereas there are parents who have been to every single one. And yeah, I feel like bad when I drop off and walk away and I see everybody walking in there. But I have a 9:30 meeting. I've got to get to my office and get organized before it. And that's my when I feel bad, I just remind myself that I'm doing more worse.
And you're also doing a lot. Reminding yourself, I am doing a lot. So it's okay to not be perfect.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think what my takeaway is, those women were like, if I wanted to be so good at my career, I had to sacrifice something. And my take is, you always have to make some sacrifices, but I want my sacrifices to be like half-assing everything a little bit, but still having those experiences. Like, I chose to have a child on my own. My first child I had on my own. And I was just 38, wanted to have a child and just did it. Whereas and that was part of my more worse. It was I'm not going to be the best parent because I'm going to be working full time, but this is an experience that is important to me. And this is part of my life that I want, even if it means I'm not the best mother out there, and that's fine.
Yeah, I feel like I'm a very multifaceted person, and so that's a struggle I have a lot of the times because I want to try a lot of different things. I want to talk about a lot of different topics. I want to experiment with a lot of different experiences, and I feel like there can be this pressure of you have to be perfect at it. And then, when you are a very multidimensional person or multifaceted person, it can be hard to get to that level of quote unquote perfection or even insane depth with everything.
Completely.
So I love that.
Thank you. Well, it's kind of you can't have it all. I mean, you can have it all if you're willing to have, if you're willing, either people say you can have it all, but at different times, which I get. Like if you want to focus on your career, I mean, this is a great option more for women these days too. Like you can focus on your career for a period of your life and then maybe your personal life, or life isn't so organized. Like you kind of have to just sort through the mess
Just
and
like flow
figure it
through
out.
everything.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, completely. Because you might be doing a lot of different things or
And
having
you're
different
not in
life
control.
experiences.
Yeah. You're not in control of when your career is going to peak or when you meet someone or your fertility, like all that kind of stuff.
For sure. Yeah. Wow. One other thing I wanted to pick your brain on, which we kind of talked about a little bit, is the difference between wellness in LA, in like the West Coast, and in the East Coast. Because I was recently talking about this with a friend and I haven't really talked about it on the podcast. So, from your perspective, as someone who like has a fitness business, but also has been in the game of wellness for a while, like study trends,
Yeah.
how do you describe it? And like, how do you see it now? Also,
So, well, two keys I think have been pretty consistent. I do think a lot of stuff starts in LA and then ends up in New York. But I also think LA can be a little more woo woo about things, a little more spiritual, a little more like it has to have tangible results. And I do think people in LA have more unstructured time and more free time. So things can take off there in a different way. So I would say like the flotation trend. I don't know if you know, like,
no, what is
oh,
that?
there's like these places that offer like flotation tanks or like where you're like floating in water and it's supposed to be very balancing and meditative and full of all these benefits. I think it's thrive more in LA. The whole IV therapy thing has, been bigger in LA to date. I think it's catching on here more and more. But I just think they're more like open to things. And I think New Yorkers are a little more type A and they want the facts and the results and
they want it faster.
Yes.
Also.
Yes.
I feel like New York is such a high-paced environment too.
Yeah.
So it's more like wake up, go to your workout, get ready in the studio, go to your work. Like it's more like that, like kind of micro shifts more than like your whole lifestyle being like the typical like wellnessy.
Completely. I also think
vibe.
like things work in LA more. So like it's a good place to start. But if you really want to prove something, then you open it in New York. Because if you can be successful with New Yorkers, then I think it's more indicative that it can like withstand the test of other places. LA is definitely more open to things.
Yeah, for sure. And what do you think are a few trends that are like slightly picking up now, but that you could see growing over time in the wellness space?
I think the whole face fitness or face as a focus, whether it's like with the massages or the
like gua sha,
percussion devices, gua sha. Everyone's been having facials for a long time, but that's very they're both cosmetic. That's very medical. I'll say facials have like a medical orientation. And I think people are just seeing it more like your face as a muscle and that it has to be like exercised more. And there are people are doing a combination of like dermatological things and like injectables, but also just trying to do more natural things.
Yeah.
I say I'm a naturalist. I mean, I heard the term somewhere else. I'm trying to be like a naturalist about my face. But if you want to do that, then you have to get face. You've got to like be doing all this stuff. Otherwise you're going to look, I say I'm going to look my age and everyone else is going to look 10 years younger. But so far I'm okay. We'll see how that goes. Some of the other trends that I love, what we've seen with at-home fitness is shorter workouts. So I think when people work out at home, they want like bursts of workouts. But now if you're going to bother to go somewhere, you want like 45 minutes to an hour in studio, but like 30 minutes to 45 max at home. People want the like shorter cheaty workouts where it's like either the vibration plate workouts or where you wear it's EMS, the electromagnetic stimulation, where you put on those crazy suits and you're getting zapped and it's a shorter workout. Or there's these machines called like the Caro where you're like pushing against your own body weight. It's only a 7-minute workout. So people want to figure out like creative ways to get the workout in. I mean, Pilates is all the rage right now.
I was gonna
All
say, I
the
mean,
rage.
Pilates, especially in the last like 2 years, like
Oh my
like
God.
the Pilates princess
Yes,
trend,
yes.
So I feel like that's been so interesting to see.
Yeah, and
Also.
I mean, I love it because obviously I did for my company because we were trying to I was trying to help those who work at SLT explain the difference between SLT and the rising crop of like the variety of Pilates workouts. And I did this whole continuum of like traditional all the way to like the real hardcore stuff. And there's a growing segment where it's kind of between traditional and like the mega former, better former, where there's a lot of reformer classes that like they'll add like you're holding a ball, you've got a band around your ankles and you're up. They're like putting a million things on to make it hard, but it's still like Pilates. And so it's happening at all areas of the spectrum. And I love it because it's the kind of workout I like. And I like that people are doing it because it's longevity.
For sure.
It's good for you for forever. There's also a big focus now on like menopause for women and like things that treat like you before, during, and after. And so I see Pilates fits in really well there. There's lots of fun stuff. I mean,
I also see sleep as a trend.
Oh yeah.
People talking more about the importance of sleep, like earlier bedtimes, things that affect your sleep, like optimizing that.
I've started using a magnesium body lotion because I take magnesium supplement before I go to bed anyway. But I read that like the absorption in your skin. So like before I go to bed, I'm like, I take magnesium and I rub it. And I mean, I'm a crazy sleep person. Like I don't let my kids in my bed while I'm sleeping. I use a like sound machine that you'd give a baby. The room has to be.
Do you do the red lights? Have you tried doing red lights?
No. Wait, for sleep?
Yeah, apparently like helps activate melatonin production.
It's so funny because when I used my like red light like thing that I have, I'm worried it's keeping me up because it's so much light in your face. So now
it might actually be helping.
I love that. You know what I've also started doing, and this is a huge trend, is cold plunging. So
a cold shower,
I've started
like
to cold plunge. Oh, I get into a 34-degree cold plunge, little like instead of a hot tub, it's like a cold plunge.
Like you put like ice in your bath.
No, my building, I'm very fortunate my building has one. Wow. But there's all these places starting. I don't know if you've heard of Remedy Place, I think it's called, or there's a lot of places you could do that now where it's got.
I actually haven't done like a full plunge like.
Oh, you got to do it. I mean,
I've done like cold like shower bursts for like 30 seconds.
I mean, that's great too. But this is immersive and it's hard, but people swear by the immunity, sleep, and recovery.
Like
so
muscle
like pain.
recovery.
Yes.
For sure. Yeah, I love that too.
So I'm a big believer in that newly.
Yeah.
So
amazing.
I mean, I try it all.
Yeah.
Unless it has a needle involved.
Then like not so sure.
No, not me. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I feel like we could keep talking for so long, but I want to do some rapid fire questions with you that I do with every guest. So I didn't tell you what they were before because I want you to just answer them intuitively.
Okay, I love it.
So the first question, you kind of already answered, but do you have a quote or a mantra that you live by?
More worse. Yes. And my other one that I love is, you regret the things you don't do more than the things that you do. So I'm prone to action.
Yes. Like better to try it than to not try it at all and regret that after. Yeah, I like that a lot. And then are there any books that you have loved or that have been a big part of your own journey that you would recommend?
I'm about to finish and I love it. And a lot of people are reading it. So it's trendy. The book Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow.
I haven't heard of it.
I have heard in the literary world, they call it T3. It's very popular right now. It's based on a pair of like video gamers who become video game designers, but so good. That's the recent book that I love. And then there's a business book I love, which is called The $1 Trillion Coach. And it's this executive coach that a lot of the Silicon Valley CEOs used. He passed away, and then a lot of his clients collectively wrote the book based on their learnings, and it's like all the big people. And it's one of those books that I highlighted, and I tell everyone.
Do you go back to it a lot?
I should. I think I gave it to someone, but I've told, everyone at SLT, it's like my recommendation. I think we should do like a book club on it. I mean, it's great for leaders. It's not necessarily for like the everyday person, but it's really good for if you're like in a management leadership role.
Yes. Awesome. And then what makes you feel like your best, like highest self?
Probably fitness or having worked out, and accomplishing things. I'm the type who has a physical book that I write down what I have to do. And so getting to the end of the day and I've crossed everything out, I feel.
Like feeling like you accomplished.
Yes. Yeah. I like to get things
set out
done.
to do.
Yes.
Yeah. Amazing. Okay, last question. If someone didn't hear this entire episode, but they just heard this part, what would you want to leave them with?
I would want to leave them with this one's a tough one. I mean, it's going to be so different than the rest of our conversation, but I am a big believer that if you are passionate about something and willing to work hard, that's the best use of your time. And everyone asks about entrepreneurship and who is it right for? And I think you can only start your own thing if you have both of those things, like the willingness to work really hard and the passion that you're not going to give up when it's tough.
Yeah, I feel like that's really important, especially the working hard part, because I think with the slowing down of the world during the pandemic, a lot of people's relationship with working hard has evolved. And I feel like now that the world is kind of picking back up as in a way that is a little more similar than before, I feel like that has been a big thing for me to even strengthen, just be like, yeah, you have to roll up your sleeves and you have to put in the work and you have to stay consistent with it.
And you're going to face so many obstacles and you're probably going to have to pivot. And I heard someone speak on the 5 traits that the greatest leaders share. And it was, not supposed to be everything, the things we already know. And 2 of the things that stand out to me, one is, and I always try to be this, and again, this going back to my signs, I think it speaks to it, is being decisive, but adaptable. So those are 2 separate ones that seem contradictory potentially, but being getting to a decision fast, but changing your mind fast if
when you
data is presented where you're that was the wrong decision. And I harken back to those 2 things. And again, these are random non sequiturs, but that's.
And I feel like it's the detachment. You have to separate and not take things personally. You have to take the step back and be able to see your business choices or your career choices or whatever you're working on from another lens and not take things so personally. Because I think that's what gets in a lot of people's way and what prevents people from being more adaptable or being more willing to change.
Completely.
So thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having
this has been
me.
amazing.
Thank you. So fun.
And I know you guys have a bunch of different studios now, but where can people access SLT? If anyone's listening and wants to try it.
Get to our website, sltnyc.com, or same on Instagram or whatever social media channel. And then I have Stretched, where we stretch people out and have all these other recovery stuff, which is the word stretch with a D after it. And it's stretchspace.com.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank
and
you.
To everyone listening, thank you guys for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next episode.